This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey y'all, I'm Molly and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast. If you haven't already, we would love it if you would like and subscribe. Just takes a second. Won't hurt, far as we know.
It's painless.
Joined as always by Pam Hill, our co-host. And we would also love to hear from you. You know, Pam and I love to get suggestions and comments, what we got right, what we got wrong, anything you want to hear about, because we love these what the feezy cases, y'all. There's never any shortage of them. We've always got them breaking, brewing, or bubbling up right here in beautiful Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast, but also well beyond the Gulf Coast. There's no shortage of what the feezy. And in fact, today's episode is called Linda Duffey's Bugs Bunny Defense. No more buwwets.
No more buwwets.
I know. Believe it or not, some lady tapped into a cartoon to defend herself, saying that when she shot her husband, Patrick, they were just joking back in 2007 in Whittier, California, in their home. But eventually prosecutors decided, not so fast, you Wasally Wabbit.
That's right.
We're not so sure we're buying this story.
Right.
What a crazy defense.
I know. Well, because she and her husband, they were just funny, little silly folks together, and they had a good life. They had been married for a little while, and they like guns. And that, so what they would talk back and forth like Bugs Bunny talk, like Elmer Fudd and them, you know, like, no more bullets, you know, when they were talking about the guns there. And I don't know why. That just sounds so crazy to me. But some people, I guess, is like baby talk or whatever kind of talk, you know, but it's what they did.
I know. It's so interesting. But I guess because she was already kind of quirky, even eccentric, kind of a storyteller, there was just something that some folks found likable about her, including one of the detectives. Yeah. And he thought, maybe this is just crazy enough to be believable. But eventually they began to realize that there were some parts about her story that were falling apart. So we're going to dive into that more in just a minute. But first, we want to give you an update on some cases we've been following and a mention of some new ones that we're following. And first of all, we're going to do a quick update on Cardi B. You may have remembered we talked about her 2018 visit to the doctor's office for a confidential prenatal appointment. She got into a verbal altercation with the security guard of the office, and then that ended up being the subject of a civil assault trial. And it just concluded. She testified, Cardi B did, that she did not physically attack the security guard. The security guard was saying that she was attacked, that she got scratched. Well, it turned out that Cardi B is innocent. She was found not guilty of those allegations. So that little lady can go on about her day and not have to worry about that anymore, hopefully.
Well, she can't just go about her day. You know, she's Cardi B. She has her $10,000 suit on with a big, pretty pink bow up here. And, you know, she'd already worn 3 or 4 different wigs there and shown them her rhinestone fingernails and stuff. I mean, people fell in love with her because she is likable.
She is and relatable.
Right. And like when the prosecutor was asking her something, he said, "How did you know?" And she said, basically, "I got eyes," or something. And then she went real demonstrative like this to him. And he said something. She said, "Hello," like that to him. And this goober over here, he said, "Hello," back. And I just, for some reason, it just made me think it was funny because I can just see this straight-laced guy going there. And I'm like, Cardi B is dragging you through the room. Stop it. But then when she went out after she was free. Remember, I told you I thought she was going to get out of this. She went out, and one of the reporters, and I think one of the like internet type people or TikTok-y kind of people was yelling at her, "Hey, what are you going to do about something about her being pregnant again or her boyfriend or husband or whatever?" It was an inappropriate question. And so she picks up, she's going to sign autographs. She picks that Sharpie up and throws it at him. Just what you were accused of in there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Her security's trying to, you know, kind of get around her, but they know not to pull her back because she does have a reputation for spinning out or doing stuff or, you know, just a little bit. I mean, she just got out of the courtroom for that.
I know. You think she'd want to stay out of the courtroom again, if you will.
Right. And then she went back to her usual charming self. She looked at him and said, didn't your mother raise you better, or your mother raised you better, or something? She said, you don't ask women that. And I'm not mad that she said that, because it was inappropriate and it wasn't kind. But anyway, she told him that. She said, you wouldn't ask men that. And that was correct too. But then she gets out there and he knows she's from the Caribbean, so she gives her answers and then she gives them in Spanish. And I was like, girl, you are smart, you're talented, you're beautiful. Calm down a minute.
Right.
You know.
I know.
So I hope she does, and I think she might. I don't know.
Good. Well, we got another crazy high-profile case that a lot of folks have been following here in Florida, the Donna Adelson case. She was recently convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation of murder, all stemming from the 2014 murder of her former son-in-law, Dan Markle. She apparently did it on behalf of her daughter, Wendy Adelson. She's denied it. I mean, she had quite the crying fit when they did convict her, but basically the prosecution painted a picture that as the mother-in-law and grandmother to Markle's children, she plotted and hired a hitman to kill her son-in-law, basically because he wasn't going to let her family move across the country and be closer to her. Or was it Florida?
To Miami, down there.
Yeah, across the state.
Yeah. Well, and they were in Tallahassee and stuff. He's a professor at FSU, and Wendy had a job there at FSU. They're both attorneys. He was a law professor. And so this is a case of where she's the fourth person to be tried. There were two hitmen, and she's the fifth person. And Donna Adelson's other son, Charlie, he's a dentist, and then his girlfriend, Magbanawa, is her name. So they'd already gone through these four people, but what they're saying is this 75-year-old woman, and this has been going on for 10 years now, this case has, is the mastermind, the matriarch mastermind of this. And so at one point during all of this, Donna Adelson had a one-way ticket to Vietnam because Vietnam won't send you back. She looked to see if there was extradition. Yeah,
they arrested her at the Miami International Airport, right? She was about to get on a plane.
Definitely. And so people were saying, the defense can come up with anything. They're like, look, they are a frugal family. They're a very wealthy family. They had everything they wanted. And we're going to do that case a little later because it's a big old case. It's a big, big, big case. But that she had everything in the world. What she could not tolerate was that this man, that is the father of these children, has the audacity to say, I'm their daddy.
Right.
And this is not a custody thing between you and me. This is an A-B conversation. See your way out. She couldn't do all that. But then Wendy would tell her mother stuff, and the mother, stay out of folks' business. Now this man, Dan Markell, is dead because these folks couldn't accept that he's going to have some say-so in the custody.
Did the daughter have any idea that this was being plotted?
Well, she says no, but now people are saying Wendy's next. They say Wendy's next, and then Harvey, the daddy of all of them. The whole family is what they say. It is so crazy to me and so pathological and so unreasonable that, like, another person, not the wife and not the husband and parents of the children, why this person over here thinks that they have so much say-so and getting in these folks' business. To me, if they would have all stayed out of it, this man was not unreasonable. He was their daddy every day, and he planned on being their daddy. Now, he has rights too. He's a law professor. She's a lawyer. They could have figured it out. But there was money involved, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, bumps on the street, the FBI. This case is so intriguing. But right now, what we're talking about is Donna Adelson, 75 years old, is sentenced to spend the rest of her life in prison.
Ooh, reminds me of our episode called Making Killer Deals. That was about a local car dealer, Ron Samuels, who hired a hitman to kill his ex-wife and her new husband, and he almost succeeded, but he left his wife paralyzed, and then he recently died in prison earlier this year. So anyway, it's crazy how what the Feezy cases all connect.
And how folks that act like that the word no, they've never heard it in their life, or mind your own business.
Exactly, and it's just they're bound and determined to bend other people to their will at all costs.
Well, this is their very best thinking. Got 4 of them already in jail for the rest of their life, and maybe Harvey, and people are like, definitely Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's another case that we're continuing to follow. Also, here's a different one. Brian Thomas Mann. I don't know if y'all have heard about him, but we're back over in Alabama with this case. He's a chiropractor. He was sentenced to life in prison also in August for attempting to murder his wife by poisoning her with lead-tainted vitamins during their divorce proceedings. Who does that remind us of?
Yeah.
Corey Richins.
Yep.
And then several other ones too. There was was it the doctor who poisoned his dentist wife?
Or the pharmacist's wife.
The pharmacist's wife. That's right. I knew it was a medical field, but yes, yeah. So again, another poisoner.
Oh yeah, poisoner. They're everywhere. When then, like on this one, Brian Mann, he was just 36, and this is up in the Hartselle, Decatur area, up in the northern part of Alabama. And this is what they said: intentional lead poisoning. He was having an X-ray room built there, and that he had some leftover lead. And so his wife only took a vitamin, a gummy, and one prescription there. So he basically, I think he just wanted to move on without her. So they tested the children to see if they had lead in their system. And this crazy ding-ding right here, he went ahead and took some lead too. So it looked like, somebody's getting both of us. I'm like, you are so dumb.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But
that's what he did. And so chiropractor, 36 years old, he has life in prison. And his sweet wife, Hannah, she was only 26 years old.
Golly, again, just selfish. They're greedy, don't want to give up the money. So.
It was about money. He got, I think, $1.3 million. If he would have died, she would have the grand sum of $52,000.
Unbelievable. So her life means nothing.
No,
hardly of any value.
Nope. So, I mean, he was just sentenced on August the 27th.
Okay, interesting. Well, and then finally, before we get to our main episode, want to talk about this nonsense. There was a Chuck E. Cheese employee who was dressed up as Chuck E. Cheese at work at a Chuck E. Cheese full of kids. And this, of course, again, happened in Florida, in Tallahassee. Yep. Jarmel Jones is his name, and he was arrested for credit card theft and fraud. This was in July of 2025. Well, they got some video of it while he was in his full mascot costume, and it went viral because people were like, what are you doing? Would you arrest Mickey Mouse?
That's right.
This is traumatizing to the kids. Couldn't this have waited? Couldn't you have got him when he wasn't in his Chuck E. Cheese outfit? But I do love me some Florida. I know we get a reputation for being Florida man, but I gotta defend my state here. I'm originally from Jacksonville, basically all but grew up in Pensacola, Northwest Florida. But we've just got great public information laws.
Yeah.
Our sunshine laws make it so we can find out some good information. And then some crazy information that maybe you don't want to know. Yeah. But yeah, for sure. This is one of those things that, was public record. And sure enough, this video of him being arrested just shook everybody up.
The perp walk with the big old feet and stuff. And then they were like, somebody came up and they wanted a picture of Chuck E. Cheese. And the cop said, ma'am, Chuck E. Cheese is busy right now. Well, his given name is Charles Entertainment Cheese, because they were going to call this place Ritz Rats or something before. And they're like, no, we don't need the name of no rat up there. And some people would just call him Chuck, But he was going out, and the kids, it did traumatize some of the kids there, but they took his head off out there in the parking lot. So, I mean, he was trying, and I think that Chuck don't mess with the wire fraud, baby.
Well, that catches you up to speed on some of these cases that we've been following and are continuing to follow. Now, let's get back to our main topic for this episode on the case of Linda Duffey. Back in April 2007, she called police saying that she had accidentally shot her husband. But later, while they were interviewing her without an attorney, she told them why. She said they were cartoon buffs. They loved to recite lines from Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, even Daffy Duck. She said it was this thing that they did, and they would basically assume the personalities of these characters. So when police questioned her after that, she told them that she had been imitating a cartoon in which Elmer Fudd convinces Bugs Bunny and Daffy that a gun is unloaded by saying, "No more bullets." So she said she picked up one of the revolvers. He was quite the gun enthusiast that they kept in the house. And when her husband said "no more bullets" in his Elmer Fudd voice, she took it to mean that his .38 was unloaded. And then she unloaded 2 bullets into his head. But police didn't realize it was 2 bullets at first. They only realized that there was one. And this case drug on for years.
It did because one of the detectives came in, and she's such a little, I guess, full-figured lady that's silly and almost like eccentric or quirky or weird. And so they had listened to the 911 call, and it was, panicky kind of because, my husband, I don't know if she said she shot him in the head or what, but I don't think she said that. At that
point. She said she had shot him and was like inconsolable, hardly even understandable.
Okay, yeah. So one of the detectives came in and he's like, "Yeah, you did," And the other one came in and said, "Well, not so fast now. I don't know. Could have been this. Could have been an accident and stuff." So that is what kept this going, because they asked these two guys, "Do y'all disagree, with partners commonly?" And one of them said, "I always disagree with my partner." So I was like, maybe that keeps things fresh and going. I don't know. But so they're in the house, and they say that, that Patrick, he was a private pilot, he was a radio engineer, and that he loved guns too. So she said the reason even the gun was pointing that way is because she was going to try to impress him by doing what's called fan firing, like cowboy, where you just don't have, that's just pulling the trigger back.
Pulling the hammer back and then pulling the trigger at the same time.
Right, that. So you can tell how much I know about guns. But it made me get uneasy thinking about that Rust thing, that Baldwin movie there, because guns, I don't think you should play with guns, and I think you need to check and see if there's buwwets yourself before you trust somebody on that.
Absolutely. Well, they bought her story hook, line, and sinker for a little while. And basically, I think they attribute it to a good extent because, like you said, there was some disagreement over whether or not they believed her. They also had this big caseload, so they interview her. Basically, they don't have any reason not to believe her at this point, so they let her go on about her merry way. And the one officer that liked her well enough was basically saying, this is just quirky and crazy enough to be possible. Maybe she really didn't mean to kill him, because there was nothing clearly obvious pointing to a motive. Right. There wasn't like a lot of money that she stood to gain. They weren't having problems in their marriage as far as anybody knew. So maybe it was just a silly accident. By all accounts, their two sons said they got along well. They were cartoon avid enthusiasts. But the other detective was like, I'm not really buying this. She said, quote, "There were so many highly improbable events that would have all had to have lined up for this to have actually been an accident." So that was the big question. Was it an accident? Was it murder? And it went on for 5 years like this because they were just an average middle-class family living in Los Angeles. There was a life insurance policy, but they'd bought it years earlier, so it wasn't like just this new thing where she stood to gain a ton of money. But still, they just couldn't quite let it go. So they kept coming back to it, and it all kind of boils back down to this gun trick that she said that she could do. That was the beginning of where this story really starts to unravel. And I thought it was interesting reading up on it. So, like, the guns that they use in cowboy movies are single action guns. So basically you can keep firing it pretty easily. And then quickly by pulling and releasing the hammer while you're holding the trigger. So like to your point, I guess it's kind of like holding the trigger and then you hit the hammer back real fast and you can keep firing it. But that is not the kind of gun that she was using. And that's significant because the Duffeys had what's called 2 single action revolvers in the house. But that's not what she was using. Linda used a double action revolver. And apparently, according to police, that's quite the difference because to rapid fire a double action revolver, the shooter has to do just this whole slew of things, and rely on the timing of the universe to make sure that it's all going to be okay in the right time, in the right sequence. And it's all but impossible. But again, everybody starts to hire their experts to say this, that, and the other. But anyway, so fast forward 5 years, they're starting to look into this. And then they realize also that there's not 1, but 2 bullets, only a couple of inches apart. And when they start looking at the blood splatter evidence, they realize, okay, well, if she was standing where she said she was as an accident, when this second bullet was fired, she would have been covered in blood from this head injury. But instead, there's just like a little bit of splatter. So they're starting to see these inconsistencies. And now there's less room for thinking, oh, maybe she's just quirky and eccentric, and they really did have this accidental shooting. Maybe now they know she's just lying. One lie after the other. Right.
They're getting there, both of them getting there together, because this happened after Patrick came home from the doctor, and he was laying on the couch with a pillow beneath his right knee and his hand like on his pocket or waist or something here, and just relaxing with his head on the arm of the couch. So he's right there. And like you said, they went up there. They couldn't see that second bullet because of crusted over blood and the blood around. And, you're looking at that going, well, let's wait before we make a decision here and let's see what's going on. Well, and also Linda, not only being quirky, her friends that had known her well from college was like, she'll just lie when the truth will do.
Right. Said she had her gallbladder taken out 3 different times.
Yeah. And that's what they said. See, we all just got one, but she said she had 3.
Well, actually, hold that thought. Speaking of gallbladders, this is the time of the show where we like to give a shout out to Joe Zarzar of Zarzar Law, who is our advertiser for Gulf Coast Confidential. We appreciate his support. But speaking of having a gallbladder removed, if you're looking for somebody to defend you and get to the bottom and get to the truth, whether it's medical malpractice, whether it's an accident, you've been hurt through no fault of your own or one of your loved ones has, you want somebody that's going to fight for you and fight for the truth. And he is representing a widow also from the Muscle Shoals, Alabama area. She and her husband were vacationing in Destin where they have a condo. He starts having some abdominal pains, and Mr. Bryan goes to the hospital. They convince him that he needs to have surgery immediately. They're reluctant. They want to go back home. But instead, they go ahead and agree to the surgery. And Dr. Shiknovsky is accused of accidentally removing Mr. Bryan's liver instead of his spleen. And so they immediately bled out on the operating table, and they're in the process of litigating this case right now. So it's a tragic case, and we're going to continue to follow it. But we do want to thank Zarzar Law for their support and also for their support of victims and being a voice for the voiceless, because you never know when some crazy situation is going to come up, when somebody's going to lie, as this particular lady, Linda, is accused of doing over and over again about her gallbladder. So at any rate, I do think it's an interesting case in this one that she was just known for telling, basically telling yarns, spinning yarns, tall tales. And it had been funny when you're in college, but now they're investigating the death of her husband.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the kind of yarn that can land you in prison.
Oh, definitely. Well, and there had to be so much, like you said, choreography to do that, what she was saying she could do. So the prosecution goes, fine, we'll hire a gun expert. So they hire a lady, and she's the one that showed that you could do that but it had to have you had to be so coordinated and this, that, and the other. So, and you can't aim when you're doing all that. Because both of those were in his head.
And they said when they confronted her with that, because it was several years later, she was like, kind of surprised. Like, okay, it is difficult. She was like, well, now that you mentioned that, that's right, I forgot. I had practiced maybe 15 or 20 times. So that's when they were like,
Yeah, we're not buying that now.
Yeah.
Well, and then also, I can't believe that one of these guys, it wasn't like she was like, Raquel Welch or something where men just get crazy and can't think right.
Right.
But this is a regular old little garden variety lady that's, just fooling around in the world, I guess. But, they let her go. And then there's this man. So Patrick's family is like, what's going on? And at Patrick's funeral, she asked the sister, she said, well, you're going to be so mad at me about something. And she's like, why? She said, well, I accidentally shot Patrick. And she said something about like where or something. And she said like in the top of the head. And so that's when the sister knew, no, that's not right either. But the family had given her so much grace too. Like I said, it wasn't like she has like all this like charm and everything and stuff. It was like people. It had to be like Lemony Snicket, a series of unfortunate events to get like this. So they let her come back. They let her be out. Then she was out for a while. And so when they start figuring all this out, they're like, hey, meet us at the range and show us how you did that fan firing, won't you?
And she never did.
No, they said, at your convenience. I'm like, wait just one daggone minute. Y'all want y'all people, if I ever get in trouble, y'all arrest me. But, so she never showed up. And then finally the prosecutor goes, go find her. So they go by the house, and her boys are home, and they see a for sale sign on the house. And they go up there, and the boys go, oh, she's on her honeymoon.
Yeah, she rebuilt her whole life. That to me was so interesting. She dyed her hair blonde. She met a new man, a musician, a professor, in fact, of music, and moved to Mississippi. New hair, new man, new home, new state. Seemed to me like maybe she was just ready for a new life. Well, and some of those details started to come out about how her now late husband had some health problems, and maybe she just didn't feel like taking care of him anymore. She's ready to be footloose and fancy free.
There's your motive, because she just got back from Italy from her honeymoon. And so she was like, look, like you said, she got the glow glow up. Everything was lightened up, and she was having a good time. This man named Larry Gwotz, I think, and they said he plays Carnegie Hall. He's that wonderful of a saxophonist, and that he is a professor at Mississippi. I don't know which university there, but in there. And so here goes girl again. She's like, well, I'm marrying this one here, and this is before the honeymoon, obviously, but this is the same friend that told us she had 3 gallbladders. She said, oh, girl asked me to come sing at her wedding. And I said, something ain't right here. I'm not singing at your stupid wedding, So that's what got people to going. And then the blood spatter, and then the second bullet. And then now we've got 5 years going by there.
I know. So they do finally arrest her in 2012, and then she goes to trial. And basically, when police are interviewing her the first time, that's when she mentioned that they were these cartoon fans and that's why it happened. She thought they were reenacting a Bugs Bunny episode. And lo and behold, there were actually bullets in the gun, and she put 2 bullets in his brain. So he died. But the jury, I think seems like it was just overload for the jury. So because she did say those things to police, and police entered it into evidence, and the prosecutor presents her statements to police in the trial, they take this Bugs Bunny defense on her part and just run with it. And they're like, hey, they truly, can't you buy this? They really are. That there was no problems in their marriage. Everything was fine by all accounts. There was nothing for her to gain. And anyway, and the prosecutor went into all the blood splatter evidence, the difficulty of doing this little gun trick that she said she was doing, this fan firing that she was practicing and accidentally killed him. And in the end, the jury just was deadlocked. It was like they were just drowning in all these different stories and couldn't find their way through it. So that had to be disappointing for his family.
Oh, it was. And it was silly enough because it was chaos. And can you imagine a sophisticated prosecutor getting up there and going, and then he said, no more buwwets, no more buwwets. So I think the people were like, what in the are you doing up in here? So that was a hung jury. And then so they decide to try her a year later.
I say good for them, but they were going to keep it a lot more simple this time. They didn't. And I thought that was great strategy because basically they didn't enter her statements to police. So that put the defense in a quandary. That was the door that they needed to have opened in order for them to present their Bugs Bunny defense. But they didn't open that door for them. So in order for them to present that defense, they were either going to have to call her to the stand or just, find some other way to get into it that was basically going to put her more in a vulnerable position. So they didn't really get into that. Now they did find in the 911 call where she made some reference to accidentally shooting him. So they did present some of the evidence about how she had practiced the fan firing. And they brought in their expert that said, oh, all this crazy, the stars aligning to make this magical bullet thing happen could happen. And anyway, but this time, I think it was not convoluted. It wasn't this, total distraction of cartoons and whatnot. So the jury came to an entirely different conclusion, and they found that it was a premeditated act, and they did convict her of murder.
Yep. And then she promptly faints because she's a drama queen and going to do all the quirky, crazy stuff. And so there had to be all kind of tending to her yet again. And so then she comes back for sentencing, and she's got this vest on, and it says hearing impaired. And then so there's all that, everybody going, my goodness. And so the victim impact statements were her sons. That was sad. Her sons are like, please be lenient on my mom. That is kind of what they did. And, that little silly talk and stuff. And then don't hurt our family any more than it is.
Yeah, I've got a couple of quotes real quick from them. But yeah, the boys were on the stand basically asking for leniency. Sean Duffey said, quote, if there's anything you can do to help out my family, that's all I can ask. And then Thomas Duffey told the judge, I believe she's innocent and I will until the day that I die. And then her second husband gets up there, and I can't help but just, I know y'all can't see me if you're listening to this, but I am kind of rolling my eyes when I say this. I'm not trying to minimize this man's feelings, but I do believe this jury got it right by convicting her. And I get it. He's in love, but still, this is just such a crazy thing to say. Quote, to assert that this was a premeditated, purposeful act, I'm sorry. It's unacceptable to me. Look at these two people beautifully in love, he continued, holding up a photo of himself and Linda. Why? Because she's a wonderful human being being who doesn't deserve this. And I thought, just because she's sleeping with you, man, doesn't make her not guilty of murder. And I don't know why, but that just annoys me.
Well, and then I think
it minimizes what she's accused of doing. Right. Even if you don't believe she did it, holding up a picture of yourself when you're fresh off just getting some new strange is hardly very moving.
Yeah. Well, I think he also referred to Patrick and her, too. He was trying anything because he finally probably found someone that could, because she is a good time. She's a good time.
Apparently so.
So, like you said, on that second one, less is more. And they didn't have all that confusion, but they talked to people in both juries. And the last jury said, well, I kind of probably would have wanted to know about the Bugs Bunny stuff. And they're like, no, never mind. She will be eligible for parole in 2037.
Yeah, I'm glad. And I saw that too, where they polled some of the jurors and said, would it have changed your opinion if you'd known about the Bugs Bunny defense? And they were like, well, possibly. And I'm like, well, my Lord, no wonder they didn't do it. So it's like, okay, you want to, anything can change your mind.
Right,
you know, why present more lies?
Well, and then after you convict somebody, you might have a little bit of ill feeling toward yourself or something. I don't know. But we've also got so many different crazy defenses. We've got a case coming up later. It's like, I'm too fat to have done that defense, and the Twinkie defense, and it was my twin brother defense. That's old as time. But anyway, those are coming up like next year.
All right, looking forward to that. Well, Pam, thank you so much. That was an interesting case, and we appreciate you. Thanks to our listeners and watchers of the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. That is it for Linda Duffey's Bugs Bunny defense. No more bullets. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. A big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. And remember, you can check out more of our episodes on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We would just love it if you would like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.